Maybe you're just scared I'm better than you!
I'm only afraid of one thing, that your arrogance will get us killed.
The outline of the dam disappeared behind thick concrete as Michael slipped into the dark service corridor. Somewhere ahead, water dripped, and in the echoing quiet, he spotted the first package, clamped to a metal support. On the display, a countdown winked. 2 minutes 15 seconds. 2 minutes 14 seconds. I see two, both on timers, he whispered into the radio. I am starting to diffuse. Do not scroll. The best part is ahead. Subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment. Major Michael Reeves stood at attention before the commander's desk, masking his exhaustion behind a stone, still face. He had barely slept through the night again. The hospital room had come back in a dream, the heart monitor suddenly flattening into a continuous tone. He pushed the memory away and squared his shoulders. Colonel Howard skimmed the dossier on the desk. On the brown cover it read, Operation Mirror Shadow Top Secret. Michael waited for his commander to speak. The assignment is unusual, Major, the colonel said at last, removing his glasses. We have intelligence about a sabotage cell preparing an attack on a critical infrastructure site on our soil. What site are we talking about? Michael asked crisply, hands folded behind his back. He preferred protocol, gather all the facts first. The colonel frowned. There are several likely targets: power nodes, dams, communications hubs. We know they are assembling explosives and intend to act within the coming week. But we do not have the exact location, only some leads. Michael tightened his jaw by a fraction. The uncertainty annoyed him, but he kept calm. What leads? The colonel turned a page. Intelligence has picked up a group calling itself the Revival. Likely radicalized individuals who think that a strike on infrastructure will set the nation back on the right path. We have the name of a possible leader and several associates, but the operation is ultra-secret. If word gets out, they will vanish underground, so we are keeping the team minimal. Michael listened closely. He had worked assignments like this overseas, but doing it at home was new, and going up alone against a terrorist cell, he gave a short nod. I will act accordingly. Not entirely alone, the colonel said, raising a finger. You have been assigned a partner. Michael's eyebrow rose. He was used to leading a special operations team trained to move as one. A lone partner was not his style, and he did not warm easily to outsiders. Who is it? The office door opened before the colonel could answer. A compact woman strode in, wearing a navy t-shirt and khaki pants. She looked just over 30. Dark ash blonde hair was pulled into a tight ponytail. Her sharp glance flicked from Michael to the colonel. First Lieutenant Sarah Miller reporting as ordered, sir. Michael tensed almost imperceptibly. He had not expected a woman, and in civilian clothes, to be his partner. The name rang familiar. Intelligence. Had he heard of her before? Lieutenant Miller, take a seat, the colonel said with a nod. Major, this is your partner, First Lieutenant Sarah Miller from the intelligence branch. She has been undercover on this case for several months. She knows more details about the Revival. Sarah offered a brief, cool smile and held out her hand. Pleasure to meet you, Major Reeves. I have heard of your accomplishments. Michael shook her hand and felt the firm grip. Her words were polite, but he caught a trace of irony in her voice. She was sizing him up too. She probably knew his file. Likewise, he answered, dry. The colonel glanced between them, as if checking that they would not go at each other right away. He wiped his lenses and continued. Here are the parameters. The two of you and only the two of you must neutralize the threat. Officially, there is no operation. You are under civilian cover. You will have full autonomy and support only under radio silence, with emergency contact to me. 2 against an entire cell, Michael blurted. He did not fear long odds, but it sounded like a death sentence. Small teams were within protocol, but without a reserve the risk was steep. I understand your doubts, Major, the colonel said sternly, but there is no other choice. Time is short and trust is in shorter supply. We cannot widen the circle. Leaks are unacceptable. You are one of our best operators. Lieutenant Miller is an expert on these zealots, and she is also a sniper. An intel officer and a sniper, Sarah corrected, proud. Michael exhaled through his nose. So she has been running the case, and I am here to finish it? Sarah narrowed her eyes. Finish it. Do not worry, Major. I will not get in your way. Just do whatever keeps your protocols happy. That is enough, the colonel cut in, raising his voice. You both know what is at stake. You will work together as one unit. Differences in methods are secondary. The result is what matters. Understood? Yes, sir, Michael and Sarah answered in unison, trading sharp looks. The colonel handed them a folder. All our data are inside. The names of 2 suspected members of the revival, their last known locations, likely contacts. Start there. Lieutenant Miller, you know the terrain, so lead jointly. Sarah took the folder and nodded. One more thing, the colonel added more gently. I know each of you has been through hard times. If anyone can carry this mission, it is the 2 of you. Do not let me down. Michael tucked the folder under his arm. He knew what the colonel meant. There was no hiding in a personnel file that a year earlier he had buried his wife. He did not know Sarah's personal history, but this was no time to ask. We will not fail, sir, he said shortly. Sarah only dipped her head, avoiding the commander's eyes. Good luck. I expect a report of success, the colonel concluded, dismissing them. They stepped into the corridor of the military headquarters. As the door shut, Michael turned to his new partner. Listen, Lieutenant, he began in an official tone. I do not know your methods, but while we are working together, follow my lead. This is not a solo undercover gig. Sarah stopped and crossed her arms. My cover and my methods are how we found these people in the first place. Without my investigation, you would not even know where to start, so spare me the lecture. I am not lecturing you, but Michael wrestled down his irritation. There is procedure. If we each improvise, we get chaos. The last thing we need is to blow our cover or get ourselves blown up. Her brown eyes flashed. If you bowl through by the book, we will get burned for sure. For a beat, he bit his tongue. In a long career, he had met willful agents, but he had not expected this level of defiance from a brand new partner. He reined himself in. Fine. We will sort it out on site. I propose we review the data and build a plan. Plan all you like, Sarah snorted. I am going to start moving. What do you mean, start moving? His face darkened. I mean, one of the suspects is Jordan Wilkes. His usual rat's nest is a bar out in the suburbs. That is our best thread. We cannot waste time. I am heading there right now, she tossed over her shoulder as she turned. Michael caught her by the elbow and made her stop. Hold up, Lieutenant. We have not even discussed a plan of action, the surroundings, support. She yanked her arm free. Too much talk, zero results. My plan is simple. Go to the bar, find Wilkes, learn what he knows. Are you coming, or are you staying here to read paperwork? Heat rose in Michael's chest. Sarah Miller clearly held protocol in contempt. His jaw set again, but he forced out. I am coming with you. Someone has to cover your disobedient backside if things go south. Sarah only shrugged and strode down the corridor toward the exit. Michael followed, barely capping his anger. A hard operation lay ahead, and the first enemy, it seemed, might be his own partner. The sun was already leaning toward the horizon when Michael and Sarah reached the suburb where the bar called the Golden Arrow sat. Michael parked the gray SUV on the next street over. The drive had passed in a tight silence, broken only by clipped exchanges about the route. Now he killed the engine and looked at Sarah. Here is the plan. We go in separately. You go first and identify Wilkes. I come in a few minutes later and provide cover. No freelancing, we take him quietly and fast. Agreed? Sarah rolled her eyes. Sure, Major, whatever you say. She adjusted the concealed holster under her light jacket. Michael checked that the pistol at his waist was secure. They were lightly armed, they were not planning for an open gunfight. Sarah had a Glock fitted with a suppressor. Michael carried a Sig Sauer. Sarah popped out of the vehicle without waiting for him and headed for the entrance. Michael muttered under his breath she was doing it her way again. He waited 2 minutes, then went in as well. Inside, the room was half dark, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the smell of cheap booze. Loud rock thundered from the speakers. Michael scanned as he walked. In the far corner sat a few tables. At the bar, a couple of tired workers unwound after their shift. To his surprise, he spotted Sarah right away across the room, sitting with two unfamiliar men. One hand held a glass. With the other, she lazily flipped a billiard ball. Michael moved to the bar, playing the part of a regular. He ordered a beer and tried to catch her words. She laughed at a joke from a bearded, middle-aged bruiser with a faded forearm tattoo. The other man, younger, with jittery eyes, kept sweeping the room as if expecting trouble. Sarah sat half-turned from Michael, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. She was saying something, leaning close to Wilkes. He caught a fragment. Heard you can get fireworks that put the military to shame. Wilkes smiled crookedly. Maybe, who are you to be asking? Sarah took a sip and traced the rim with a finger. A friend who needs a really big boom. I have a little order. Michael winced. She was playing the buyer to draw him out. Risky if Wilkes got suspicious, things could heat up. The bearded man narrowed his eyes like a predator. Interesting. Where are your friends? People do not handle business like this over a drink. They are nearby, Sarah said, leaning so close she nearly touched his shoulder. But I make the decisions. If we agree, you make good money. The younger man twitched. Jordan, I do not like this. Wilkes waved him off, eyes locked on Sarah. How much product do you need? Enough to send, say, a power plant into the air, Sarah said, cold. A chill went through Michael at the bar. She was pushing the edge now, but her bluff worked. Wilkes choked on his beer. What the hell are you talking about? Who sent you? Sarah moved like a flash and jammed a gun under his ribs. Easy. If you do not want new holes in your body, sit still and listen. I ask, you answer. The younger man reached for his waistband, but Michael reacted, sliding behind him and wrenching his arm up. Do not move, Michael ordered quietly. Rage and fear flared in Wilkes's eyes. He lifted his palms. Okay. You a cop? FBI? Bad guess, Sarah said through her teeth, pressing harder. Answer the question. What are you planning to hit, and when? Wilkes swallowed and glanced at his partner, now frozen. In the far end of the bar, the patrons noticed nothing over the roar of the music. Screw you, he hissed and suddenly lunged for something in his pocket. Do that again, and the next shot goes where it counts, Sarah snapped, still quiet but lethal. Talk. The kid in Michael's hold sagged, trying to twist free. Michael tightened his grip until the man yelped. Damn it, Jordan, just tell them. Wilkes ground his teeth, eyes gone blood-hot. Fine, just do not shoot. The plan, he drew breath. We planted charges on one of the dams. The blast is in a few days. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Which dam? I do not know the exact site, Wilkes rasped. I swear, the boss knows. The boss's name, Michael cut in, still pinning the other man. He calls himself Royce. That is all you get. You are already dead. Wilkes spat and suddenly jerked. Damn, Michael breathed, glancing around. The music had fallen away at the worst moment, and the scuffle had drawn attention. The bartender stared, and several patrons rose. Sarah made it look as if she were helping Wilkes up. In reality, she frisked him fast, pulled a phone and a folded slip of paper. Move. Now, she ordered Michael. They sprinted for the back door. Shouts flared behind them. Someone from the bar gave chase. They burst into a dark alley behind the building. Sarah ran full tilt, and Michael barely kept pace. Hold it, he called, grabbing her shoulder as they rounded a corner. What the hell was that? Information, she snapped free. Now we know the target is a dam, and the leader calls himself Royce. Do we know? Under pressure, Wilkes could have said anything. Michael shot back. And now we have 2 injuries on our hands. The second one is just knocked out, she said, unfolding the slip she had taken from Wilkes. In the dusk, she squinted at the scrawl. There are coordinates and a date. Damn, the meet is at midnight tonight. Let me see, Michael said, taking the scrap. It did indeed list GPS coordinates and was marked for midnight. No explanation, but likely a rally point. Sarah pocketed the seized phone. Wilkes was supposed to meet the others tonight, so he was not lying about the timetable. If they are gathering, they intend to move soon. Breathing hard from the sprint and the adrenaline, Michael wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. But Wilkes is out of play now. He would have struck first, she said, hard as steel, without a trace of regret. Unfortunate, but we do not have time for delicacy. Bitterly, Michael felt the loss of a fuller interrogation, but Sarah was already charging down the alley. Maybe it is for the best he did not warn them. We still have a chance to catch up. Let us go to those coordinates. He shook his head, but followed. Back in the vehicle, as they shot from the alley into the street, Michael growled under his breath. That was chaos. You nearly blew everything by exposing yourself like that. Hands tight on the wheel, Sarah only pressed her lips. But I did not blow it. We got data. There was a quieter way. Enough, she snapped. What matters now is this. If the coordinates are right, we have a few hours. Michael fell silent. She was right, recriminations would not help. He glanced at the navigator. The route led into mountain pass country beyond the city. The drive would take at least an hour. Silence filled the cabin again, the steady engine hum, the only sound as they sped along the highway. Each sank into private thoughts. In the side window reflection, Michael saw Sarah's set face, stubborn jaw, eyes locked on the road. He was angry with her, and yet he had to admit, she had acted decisively and likely saved their lives in the bar. Without her quick hands, Wilkes might have raised the alarm. At last, Michael cleared his throat. Royce, then. Do you know anything about him? I have overheard a few mentions, Sarah said, taking her eyes off the road for a heartbeat. They say he is former military, an ideologue who thinks the country is mired in sin. Revival, as in resurrect the nation through disaster. A fanatic in short, but he can fire people up. A former soldier who betrayed his oath and is ready to kill civilians. Wonderful, Michael said, teeth clenched. Anger climbed his throat like a knot. Men like Royce were a disgrace to the uniform, sworn to protect, now bringing death. Catching his heat, Sarah softened a notch. Either way, we will see him soon. Michael checked his weapon again. The mountain road led them into empty country, dark tree lines, knives of rock glittering in the headlights. Michael shut down the engine half a mile short of the coordinates to keep the vehicle noise away. The rest would be on foot. They stepped from the SUV, shrugging into tactical vests and clipping on night vision gear. The night was moonless and cold. Michael slung a carbine with a standard suppressor. He had brought it in case the fight got serious. Sarah pulled a long case from the back and assembled a compact sniper rifle with a night scope. She ran the bolt and nodded. Ready? Michael whispered. Always, she whispered back, and moved first along the forest path. They advanced almost soundlessly, speaking in hand signals. Within several minutes, a weak glow showed through the trees ahead. Michael raised a clenched fist. Stop. They crouched behind a broad trunk. In a shallow hollow sat an old wooden shack or shed. Light from a single lantern leaked through one window. 2 subs stood outside. Michael signaled Sarah to cover him, then belly crawled through brush to get a better look. A sentry with a rifle smoked by one vehicle. 2 more men lingered near the shack's door, talking, glancing into the dark from time to time. He slid back to Sarah and whispered a report. Minimum 3 outside, unknown inside. This may be only part of the cell. You think it could be a trap? Sarah caught the doubt in his voice. We prepare for everything, Michael said after a moment's thought. No frontal push. We creep closer and listen. Maybe we catch a piece of their plan." Sarah nodded and crawled parallel to him, taking a perch on a right-hand rise with a clean view of the yard. She dropped her bipod and settled behind the scope. Michael pushed forward through low scrub on the left until he reached an old metal drum roughly 65 feet from the shack. The forest's voice drowned most sounds, crickets ticking, an owl calling high above. Even so, fragments floated from the cracked door. "If Wilkes does not show, we will have to," one voice said. "Time is short." "Royce said we head for the site at first light," another answered, low and rough. Michael's pulse quickened. They were talking about the target. Then, under his elbow, a dry twig snapped, loud as a gunshot to his ears. Cold washed through him. He glanced down. A twig had split under his weight. That was enough. "Someone's out there," the sentry yelled, hand flying to his radio. Michael swore in silence and opened fire. "Contact," someone shouted from the shack. Sarah joined in at once. Michael used the confusion to sprint to the cover of a dented pickup. "They are flanking from the left," Sarah's voice crackled in his earpiece. They wore tiny radio buds for just this. Michael looked left. Shadows moved among the trees, two more militants sweeping the flank. At the same time, someone at the shack barked. "Fall back, grab the documents." Feet pounded inside. They were about to bolt through a rear door. That could not happen. "Cover me," Michael said into the radio and broke from cover, charging across the open ground to the shack. Sarah complied instantly, pinning the flankers. Michael hit the doorway and sliced a look inside. The cluttered room held sleeping bags, a spread-out map on a table, and a lantern. Two men were already diving through a door on the far side. "Freeze! Drop your weapon!" Michael shouted after them. A white-hot stab tore into his left shoulder. A heartbeat later, a blast went off inside the shack. The shock wave hurled Michael off the porch. Darkness swam, a high whine flooding his ears. He forced himself to roll behind the foundation lip, not lie exposed. Blurred halos drifted in his vision. Sarah's voice bled through the earpiece, muffled. "Michael, status? Michael?" "Here," he rasped. "Alive." He pushed up and saw an awful sight. The shack was burning. Inside, munitions must have cooked off. Sparks clawed at the night. Sarah was already running down from the rise. "You are hit!" she shouted over the ringing in his head. Michael touched his shoulder. His fingers came away bloody, but he could move the arm. The bullet had only creased the muscle. "Nothing I cannot handle," he croaked. "You okay?" "I am fine," she said, catching her breath. "But Royce is not here." This was only part of the group. Michael swore. They had risked everything and still missed the leader. But there was no time to lament. The fire was raging higher. "We need to move. They may have called for backup." Sarah nodded. She bent and scooped up a crumpled map that, by some miracle, had landed just outside the door, untouched by flame likely tossed by the blast. She rolled it quickly and shoved it inside her jacket. In the grass near a shattered window, Michael spotted a leather briefcase. Someone had dropped it while trying to save documents from the fire. He grabbed it. Something was inside, a laptop or papers, maybe both. "Move," he ordered. They plunged into the forest's darkness, putting distance between themselves and the burning building. Michael led them by instinct, checking the GPS on his wrist-mounted display. The distance to the car was shrinking, but the roar of engines was already rising behind them. Maybe the ones who escaped had called for help, or a random patrol had noticed the fire. Sarah suddenly gasped and stumbled. Michael stopped at once. "What happened?" She swore under her breath. "My ankle. I think I twisted it." Through the green wash of the night vision scope, he saw her limping on her right leg. Without hesitating, Michael swung her arm over his shoulder. "Lean on me." They moved on, slower now. The engine noise kept getting closer. Someone was barreling down the dirt road toward them. They still had roughly 300 meters to the car when headlights flashed on the trail behind them. "This way," Michael hissed, tugging Sarah off the path. They dove into thick ferns and hazel brush. A minute later, two vehicles tore past, their beams sweeping blindly through the trees. Michael's heart pounded like mad so long as they did not get spotted. One of the vehicles suddenly braked maybe 50 meters away. Voices carried. They could have come this way. A roof-mounted spotlight on the SUV skimmed across the woods, drifting closer. Michael pressed Sarah flat to the ground and lay beside her, trying to melt into the darkness and the undergrowth. He felt her hot breath close to his face. "Don't move," he whispered, barely audible. Sarah nodded, her eyes glinting in the dark. The beam crawled over them and then snagged on the trunks behind. A little more, and they might have been seen. But then, far off on the other side of the forest, sirens wailed. The fire must have drawn local responders. Their pursuers muttered to each other, then the vehicles lunged forward and sped away. They had obviously decided to fall back rather than risk running into the police. Michael lay still a moment longer, listening. The engines faded. He lifted his head. "Looks like we're in the clear," he breathed out. He felt Sarah relax beside him. Then she groaned. Michael remembered her injured ankle. "Can you walk?" he asked softly. Sarah tried to stand, bracing against him, but hissed sharply with pain. "I can't. My ankle is on fire." "Okay." Michael glanced around. Their car was not far, but if the searchers swept the area, the route might be cut off. "We need a place to hole up till morning. Then we go for the car." He helped her ease back down. In the forest's darkness, it was hard to get bearings, but he recalled the area map. A few hundred meters from here, there should be an abandoned forester's outpost or a hunting shack. He had noticed such markings in the satellite images while prepping. "Let's try for the old ranger cabin," he told her. There was something like that nearby on the map. Sarah clenched her teeth, forcing herself through the pain. "Lead the way." Michael scooped her up, slinging his weapon behind his back. "Don't fight me." She started to protest, then only sighed and wrapped her arms around his neck, letting herself be carried. He pushed through the thicket, watching his footing. She was light, but carrying someone over uneven ground was no small thing. After 10 minutes, he finally spotted a dark rectangle among the trees, a small wooden shack, half ruined, but the walls and roof seemed intact. He came up to it and carefully set Sarah down by the door, steadying her. Inside was dark and quiet. He drew a flashlight and sent short, controlled bursts across the room. Empty, just old crates and broken furniture, spiderwebs in the corners. The roof was intact, the floor dry good enough for a temporary hide. "Let's get in," he whispered, easing Sarah onto a worn wooden bench. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard from pain and exhaustion. Michael shot the bolt on the door. From the inside, some protection was better than none. Then he crouched beside his partner. "Let me see your ankle." She let him remove her boot without a word. The swelling was bad enough to notice even in the gloom. When Michael touched it, Sarah hissed. "A sprain or a hairline fracture? I hope just a sprain," he muttered. He pulled a first aid kit from his tactical pack and took out an elastic wrap. "I'm going to bandage it. It will hurt." "Do it," she exhaled. He wrapped the ankle tight. Sarah bit her lip but stayed silent. Her toughness impressed him. No whining, no complaints, even though the pain had to be brutal. "All set," he said at last, tearing the end and securing it. "At least it's stabilized a little." She nodded and wiped sweat from her brow. "Thank you." Michael slid down beside her, back to the cold wall. His body ached, especially the shoulder he had strained carrying her. He felt the wound. It could use a dressing, too. Sarah noticed. "You're hurt as well." "It's nothing," he waved it off. "Just clipped my shoulder." But she was already leaning in, fingers brushing his shoulder. "Let me see." He started to object, but Sarah was already unfastening the straps of his vest to reach the wound. He gave in, shrugged off the tactical vest, and peeled away the jacket. His t-shirt clung to his skin. "Sit still," she said gently. She found disinfectant and gauze in his kit. By the flashlight's beam, she cleaned the cut. When she finished, Sarah taped on a bandage. Her hands were deft, but Michael felt them tremble ever so slightly. Was she shaken, or was the stress finally catching up? They sat in silence for a few minutes. In the tiny room, you could hear only their heavy breathing. Far away, night creatures rustled, and somewhere wood crackled. The place they had left behind was probably still burning. Michael broke the quiet in a low voice. "You saved my life back there, in the woods." Sarah shifted. "We saved each other. You carried me out." She trailed off, and he heard something new in her tone's softness, tired gratitude. For once, no sarcasm. "Yeah," Michael said. "I'm sorry I yelled after the bar. You were right about Wilkes. If not for you, they might have nailed me back there." In the dark, Sarah gave a sad smile he could almost feel. "I was impossible too. It's just," she looked away, "I'm used to working alone." "I get it," Michael nodded. "Still, the teamwork paid off. Let's see what we grabbed." He swept the light over their hall. He unfolded a crumpled map Sarah had picked up. Soot stains smudged it, but it was readable. A topo map with a river highlighted in blue and a dam marked. Michael peered closer and read, Grey Rock Dam. He knew the name, a large hydroelectric dam out west. "So their target is Grey Rock Dam," he whispered. "If it goes down, it floods entire towns downstream." Sarah cursed softly. "Bastards, there are hundreds of people living in that valley." "Exactly. They do not care. They want a disaster to restart the world." Michael folded the map. "There's also a briefcase." He opened it and looked inside. Papers, a few smartphones, and a small laptop. "This could be their whole playbook," he said. Sarah sighed. "Would be nice to poke around, but we have no internet and no power." Although, she remembered something and pulled a phone from her pocket. Wilkes's, taken at the bar. "I still haven't checked this." She powered it on. Thankfully, the battery had some life. The screen lit their faces with a pale glow. Sarah skimmed through messages. "Here's a text from a contact named Royce. It says, 'Meeting at midnight, don't be late. In the morning we move to the site. Dosi, the rest is cut off.'" She scrolled. "There's a geolocation ping coordinates for the exact spot we hit. And, oh." "What?" Michael asked, sharp with concern. She swallowed. "Wilkes wrote someone, 'After we succeed, I'll disappear. My family would be proud.' And the other person replied, 'This is for Maya and Andy. Royce promised to help.'" Michael frowned. "Maya and Andy, did Wilkes lose someone?" Sarah killed the screen and exhaled. "Looks like they recruit people with personal tragedies. Royce probably preys on grief, peddling some so-called higher purpose." Michael rubbed his face. "Explains why they're so fearless. They feel like they have nothing left to lose." Silence settled. Sarah said quietly, "When someone loses everything, it can feel like it doesn't matter if they die." Michael heard the bitter edge in her words. He turned off the flashlight. They were back in darkness. The phone was dark too. "Sarah," he used her name for the first time. "That part isn't true. It does matter." He remembered how she had charged into fire, how she never flinched from danger, as if she was courting death. His chest tightened at the thought. She managed a fragile smile. He sensed it in the shiver of her breath. "You don't know what it's like to lose the people you love." Michael set a hand on her shoulder. "I do," he whispered. She flinched. A small, quiet question followed. "Whom did you lose, Major? Your service record is spotless, all commendations. Nothing about a family." He ran a palm over his face. He had buried this pain for too long, too deep. "My wife died during the birth of our daughter." The darkness hid the tears sparking in Sarah's eyes. "Your daughter, is she alive?" "Yes," Michael said with a small smile. "Little Lily. She's 9 months old now. She's with my sister while I'm here." Sarah covered her mouth. You had to leave a newborn and go back to war." "I had no choice," he breathed. "I served my country, and to be honest, after my wife died, I couldn't bear being at home. I threw myself into the work, because looking at my little girl and seeing the woman I lost, his voice shook. Sarah gently laid her hand over his. She needs her father. He squeezed her fingers. I know. I want to live for her, even though sometimes it feels like a part of me died with Elizabeth. Sarah scooted closer. He caught the smoke on her clothes and the faint trace of her perfume mingled together. She whispered, I lost my family too, my husband and my little boy, a year ago. A car accident. I survived. They didn't. Michael tightened his hold on her hand. He felt her trembling. I'm so sorry. Do you know why I re-enlisted? She whispered. Because I had nothing to live for. I figured either I'd die in a fight or maybe I'd find some kind of oblivion in this war. Her words sliced him open. He turned to her sharply. Don't say that. You do your duty brilliantly. You save people. Your family would be proud of you. She almost choked on a sob. I didn't save them. There was nothing I could do. He could not help himself. He pulled her into his arms. At first she went rigid, then something in her gave way, and she pressed against him, shaking with suppressed sobs. He stroked her hair, murmuring, Hey, easy, it's not your fault. She wept in silence, warm tears dropping onto his neck. Michael's heart ached. He knew that feeling the bottomless emptiness of loss. They were both hurt souls fate had thrown onto the same path. We are not meant to die, he whispered, brushing away a tear on her cheek. We're still needed here. I need you. Sarah lifted her face. Only inches separated them. He felt her unsteady breath on his lips. Michael, she breathed, saying his name for the first time. Something flipped inside his chest. Her name fell from his mouth of its own accord. Sarah. Their kiss was quiet and careful, as if they were afraid of breaking each other. Her lips were salty with tears, warm and hungry. Michael felt his head swim for the first time in many months. The pain in his heart eased, giving way to something real and alive. He drew her closer. Her fingers slid across his chest. Wordlessly, they sank to the old wooden floor, still holding each other. Sarah slipped a hand under his t-shirt, and he flinched at her touch, the scar on his side, from a wound in a past deployment. She paused. Does it hurt? No, he answered hoarsely. I'm okay. Their eyes met in the half-dark. Sarah's pupils shone. She touched his cheek with her fingertips. It's been a long time since I felt anything like this. Michael smiled softly. Me too. He kissed her again, deeper, braver. Her arms went around his shoulders, careful not to brush the bandage, drawing him closer still. In the abandoned cabin's darkness, there was only their closeness, no noise, nothing extra, just two lost people who had found each other in the most dangerous moment of their lives. An hour later, they lay side by side on a spread-out tactical poncho Michael had pulled for a blanket. Sarah's head rested on his chest, his arm curled around her shoulders, his hand drifting in gentle strokes. She was almost asleep, wrung out by the night and the emotions. Warmth spread through Michael's chest. He was not alone for the first time in a long time. Michael, she murmured, already drifting. I'm here, he answered, lowering his head toward hers. Do you think we have a future? He stared up through a gap in the roof where cold stars showed. I don't know, he said honestly, but I want to believe we do. Sarah nestled closer. I'm afraid to lose the ones I might love again. He kissed her forehead. Me too, but if we survive tomorrow, I promise I'll stay as long as you'll have me. She said nothing, only held him tighter. A few minutes later, her breathing evened out. She was asleep. Michael lay awake a long time, on guard, holding her and listening to the sounds of the night woods. Dawn found them on their feet. After only a few hours of fitful sleep in each other's arms, Michael and Sarah woke as soon as the sky began to pale. No more talk about feelings. The mission was back on top. But the looks they traded were full of new trust and warmth. Sarah's ankle had gone down a bit, but she could walk only with support. Michael helped her make it to the car. Avoiding open roads, there was no sign of their pursuers. The SUV, luckily, sat where they had left it. Apparently, the enemy had decided not to waste time combing the forest and instead rushed for their objective. "Can you drive?" Sarah asked, settling into the passenger seat with a grimace as the ankle throbbed. Michael slid behind the wheel. "I can." He unfolded the Grey Rock Dam map and set it between the seats. "Here it is. We're about 100 miles out." "We should hit the area around noon," Sarah guessed after a glance at her watch. It was around 6 in the morning. "Yeah, they've got a small head start, but if they mean to set everything up, the blast could be planned for evening or for tomorrow." Sarah nodded. "Wilk said in a few days. Maybe a day, 2 at most, but we can't risk it." Michael started the engine, and the vehicle shot down the dirt road and back to the highway. "Agreed. We need to beat them there or catch them off guard." They wound down the mountain road. As he drove, Michael grabbed the radio and switched to their prearranged frequency. "Base, this is Reeves. Do you copy?" Static crackled, then Colonel Howard's familiar voice came through. "Reeves, finally, you've been dark all night." Michael traded a glance with Sarah. "Sorry, sir, circumstances forced radio silence. We've identified the saboteur's target. It's Grey Rock Dam. A detonation is likely within the next 24 hours." The colonel swore. "Grey Rock, hell. Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. We have their map and documents. They lost some people, but the rest, including their leader, are heading there." "Understood. I'll alert the center immediately. We'll lock down access to the site." "Sir, please no obvious moves," Sarah cut in, leaning toward the radio. "If they spot evacuations or roadblocks, they might blow it early." The colonel paused, thinking. "All right, we'll proceed quietly. There is on-site security at the dam. I'll have the staff pulled back under some pretext, no sirens, no panic." "Thank you, sir," Michael replied. "We'll be on scene in a few hours and attempt to disarm the charges." "Reeves, Miller," the colonel's tone softened. "Watch yourselves. Reinforcements will not arrive for at least 3 to 4 hours, and even then not at full strength. Plan to operate on your own." "Roger that, sir," Michael said. "We'll get it done." The transmission ended. Sarah leaned back in her seat. "At least they'll clear the civilians. That's something." "Yeah," he agreed. "Fewer hostages or casualties if anything goes sideways." They drove in silence for about an hour, conserving energy, each thinking about what lay ahead. At last, Sarah touched his shoulder, tentative. "Michael, if we do not make it." "We will," he cut in, eyes on the road. "But if we don't," she persisted softly, "I want you to know you gave me back something. I thought I'd lost the feeling that life is worth living." His throat tightened. He nodded slightly without looking away from the asphalt. Ahead, the reservoir flashed on the horizon. Grey Rock, a massive concrete wall, rose between cliffs, holding back the blue water of a great lake. A little town and farm fields spread nearby. Everything would be underwater if the dam failed. Michael left the highway for a service road. Cones blocked the scenic overlook. Local authorities had clearly gotten the word to limit access. There were no tourists around. They tucked the vehicle behind a hill and covered the rest on foot. Sarah clenched her jaw and bore the pain. The limp was barely there now. Adrenaline had dulled it again. Michael suggested she hang back to cover from a distance, but she shook her head. "No, I'm going with you. I can take a sniper position if needed, but I'm staying close." He did not argue. Together they climbed to the observation deck above the dam, with a view of the entire structure. The sun was already high, flooding the concrete with hard light. Below, water thundered through the spillways. "See anyone?" Michael asked, scanning the top deck. Sarah was already setting her rifle on its bipod. "No one extra. Looks like they pulled the guards. But our friends are here somewhere." Michael raised his binoculars, tracing along the crest, and saw them. 2 figures in work coveralls moving along a catwalk, hauling clearly heavy bags. "Contact. They look like maintenance, but the bags." Sarah glanced through her scope. I see them. One, then another. Where's the rest? Likely inside. There are service tunnels in the dam. She bit her lip. If they're planting charges down low on the water side, it will be tough to reach them. Michael made the call. We split. I'll go down through the tunnel system and try to find the bombs. You hold here and cover. Take the ones you can hit from above. Sarah met his eyes. Okay, just be careful. He squeezed her shoulder. You too. For a heartbeat, fear flickered in her gaze, but Michael nodded a promise to come back, then sprinted down the slope toward a maintenance entrance. No one guarded the heavy door. The security pullback was in effect, but the door stood ajar. He slipped inside. A dim corridor led into the internal galleries. Somewhere water dripped, echoing through the concrete guts. Michael moved carefully, safety off. A dull pop sounded from above. Sarah was at work. Her voice rasped in his earpiece. One down. The second is hiding behind the vent housing up top. Keep at it, Michael answered. He wound down a spiral stair to the dam's base. The flow roared here, water blasted through wall apertures, misting the air with cold spray. Movement flickered in the half-light. Two men were strapping a large wired bundle to a steel stanchion. Michael hugged the wall and peeked, sighting in. Two bomb techs at the bottom. One neutralized, the other is running, he called to Sarah. Up top, that second target is still tucked in, not showing himself, she replied. Michael saw flickering daylight far down the corridor, likely an exit to the outside. He lunged at the fleeing man and knocked the gun from his hands. The guy was young, eyes wild with fear. Don't shoot, he pleaded. How many did you set? Michael barked. T2, maybe 3, I don't know. Royce did it himself. I only carried stuff. Where is Royce? Michael fisted the man's collar. He's up top, in the pump control room, the kid groaned. He'll stay till the end. Sarah's voice cut in over the net. Michael, the second target vanished from the top. He's probably heading down inside toward you. And I saw Royce. He's moving on to the overlook above the spillway gates. Keep him busy. I'm coming, Michael said. He frisked the kid fast and pulled a remote from a pocket. He powered it off and stuck it in his belt. Lie still and do not move, he snapped. The kid only moaned. Michael pivoted back. The device was big and improvised, driven by a clockwork timer. On the display, numbers blinked. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. 2 minutes and 14. His heart kicked against his ribs. Sarah, the first one, is at 2 minutes, he shouted into the radio as he moved along the wall, searching. Where else? There, the second bundle, 10 meters away, also strapped to a support. Both were set to blow at once, tearing the dam's base. I see 2, both on timers, Michael reported quickly. I'm starting to disarm. He dropped to the first one. Training kicked in. Michael pulled a multi-tool, flipped open a side panel. The countdown mechanism fed the charge through 2 leads, one red and one yellow. To avoid a booby trap, he could either cut both at the exact same time or isolate the blasting cap. He chose the latter. Carefully, he eased the detonator cap out of the charge, holding his breath. Sweat stung his eyes. The seconds were bleeding away. At last, the cap came free. Michael tossed it aside now. Even if the timer tripped, the main charge would not detonate. One disarmed, he called, sprinting to the second. Faster, Sarah croaked. He heard fear in her voice for the first time. Royce is yelling something, but I do not see him. Michael dove to the second device and started easing the cap loose. Suddenly, the timer leaped from 35 seconds to 10. A siren shrieked. Damn it! The trap was sprung. The instant he tugged the cap, a trigger accelerated the countdown. There was no choice. Michael grabbed the whole package with both hands and ripped it from the stanchion. It had been bolted on, but it gave way heavy, several kilos. 7 seconds, 6. He heaved and hurled the bomb into the spillway throat where water pounded through under pressure. The charge vanished into the churning torrent a few meters below. Michael jumped back behind a corner and covered his head. A heartbeat later, the world thumped. A muffled blast shook the structure. A white column of water erupted from the opening, filling the air with wet spray. The shock wave never hit water, ate the blast. Michael was thrown to the floor, but felt no bite. Coughing in the mist, he got to his feet. "We're good, the dam is intact." "Oh my God," Sarah breathed in his ear. "I saw the water column. Are you alive?" "Still in one piece," he said, wiping his face. "One more down. Michael, where are you?" "Royce is on the upper platform with a remote." Michael remembered the kid's words. Royce in the pump control shelter. He had to get there. He ran back the way he had come. On the way, he scooped up the remote he had taken, not sure it still mattered, but just in case. He clawed up the spiral stairs, daylight bright ahead, and exit onto the crest. When he burst out, fire cracked the welcome committee. Michael dove behind a concrete parapet. "Walking into the lion's teeth, Major," a mocking voice called. A man in camo stood behind a column, a remote in one hand and a rifle in the other. Royce, broad-shouldered, gray-haired, his face split with old scars. "I knew the Army would send someone better than those deadweights from the Bureau." Michael peeked and took aim. "Drop the weapon, Royce. Your plan is blown." "You're lying," Royce snarled. "I still have an ace up my sleeve." He raised the remote and pressed a button. Michael tensed, but nothing happened. Royce stared at the device, baffled, and pressed again. Still nothing. Michael gave him a cold smile, lifting the gadget he had picked up below. "Looking for this?" I said. "Drop the gun." Realizing his last play was gone, Royce's face twisted. Instead of surrendering, he yelled, "Better to die than betray the cause," and snatched a pistol from his belt. A single shot cracked. "Target neutralized," Sarah said quietly over the net. Seconds later, fast footsteps hammered from behind. Despite her injury, Sarah was running toward him along the dam. He opened his arms, and she crashed into them, holding on hard. "God," she breathed, breathless. He smoothed a hand over her hair, feeling the last of the tension drain away. "It's over," he whispered into the crown of her head. "We did it." Tires squealed behind them. Several SUVs skidded to a stop. Reinforcements had arrived at last. Special operators and AUD techs spilling out and taking stock. Michael and Sarah slowly let each other go. Among the newcomers, he spotted Colonel Howard. He must have flown in with the support team. He was puffing, face flushed. "Major, Lieutenant," he called, hurrying over. "Are you both all right?" "Yes, sir," Michael said, snapping a salute. Sarah did the same. They were soaked, smoke-streaked, scraped up, but alive. The colonel glanced at Royce's body. "You reckless fools, but damn it, I'm glad you're alive. And the job is done." Pride shone in his eyes. Michael gave a tired smile. "Thank you, sir." Sarah leaned on Michael. Her ankle was back to complaining now that the adrenaline had faded. The colonel noticed. "Lieutenant, you need a medic." "I'm fine," she said, waving it off. "We'll manage." Howard squinted at them, a sly look passing between one and the other. "I can see you will." They just shared a quiet smile. The colonel cleared his throat. "I did not see you, and I know nothing. But I will say this, I am proud of both of you." He shook Michael's hand, then Sarah's. "All right, not another word. Medics and the bomb squad will handle the rest. You two get some rest. We're heading back to base by helicopter." Michael looked up at the sun riding high. A few hours earlier, he had not been sure he would see this day at all. "Sir," he said, "I do not think Lieutenant Miller and I will be staying long at the base." The colonel raised a brow. "Oh? Why is that?" Sarah said quietly, "After this mission, we've decided to leave the service, Colonel." He clicked his tongue in surprise, then understanding softened his face. "A loss for the Army, but I suppose you have earned the right to choose." She nodded, and Michael added, "Thank you for understanding, sir." Colonel Howard straightened, slipping back into official cadence. I will see to it that both of you receive the honors you are due. Then you are free to go. I am sure civilian life will suit you better." For a moment he turned solemn again and went on more gently. "You have both been through a lot. I know this. Sometimes the army gives us purpose, but real purpose is not found in it. Take care of each other." Michael felt his throat tighten. He gave a short nod, words stuck. Sarah unexpectedly stepped in and hugged the colonel. He patted her back, flustered. "All right, that's enough, kid," he grumbled kindly. Sarah stepped back. The colonel drew a breath and put his command face on again. "Back to work. Go let a doctor look at those wounds." He turned and strode off to issue orders. Michael and Sarah stood together a moment amid the controlled chaos of the response. A week later, at Fort Bryn, warm autumn sun poured over the parade ground at noon. By the checkpoint, dressed in civilian clothes now, Michael and Sarah finished the last formalities. They signed a few forms, and that was it. Their service was behind them. Michael pulled open the heavy gate and walked out with Sarah into freedom. She looked back at the gray headquarters building she had marched out of so many times on missions. Today was the last time. He saw a shadow of sadness cross her face. "Second thoughts?" he asked. She breathed out. "No, easier than I expected. What's ahead is life." Michael smiled and took her hand. Together. By the parking lot, a car waited. A young woman climbed out, Michael's sister, holding a small bundle. The moment Michael saw his daughter, his heart thumped. He hurried to them. "Hey there, little Lily." Sarah came up, shy but curious. Lily immediately noticed the new face and reached out with a chubby hand. "Hello, beautiful," Sarah said softly, touching the baby's fingers. The tiny hand gripped her finger tight. "Lily, this is Sarah," Michael told his daughter gently. "She means a lot to your dad." Sarah looked up at Michael, eyes suddenly wet. He smiled, warmth spreading through his chest. His sister tactfully drifted back toward the car, leaving them a moment. "She's wonderful," Sarah whispered. "Want to hold her?" he asked. Sarah shook her head, nervous. I'm not sure." "It's okay." Michael carefully placed Lily in her arms. Sarah gathered the baby close, supporting her head. Lily scowled at the change at first, then settled into the new embrace and even smiled, catching a lock of Sarah's hair. "Hi there, little one," Sarah laughed through joyful tears. I'm so happy to meet you." Subscribe to our channel so you do not miss anything, because this episode is nothing compared to what is coming next. If you are under 18, do not even think about clicking next.